Let me guess, you're earning just enough to survive, but never enough to actually relax. Every month feels like a tightrope walk. One unexpected expense, and everything falls apart. Payday hits, and it disappears just as quickly. And somewhere deep down, you've started believing a pretty dangerous idea, that if you just made more money, everything would finally be okay. That once you cross some invisible income line, the stress will fade, life will stabilize, and wealth will just naturally follow. But here's the part nobody tells you: you've been sold a half-truth. You were told, work hard, play by the rules, and you'll make it. What they didn't tell you is that the system around you is designed to make you spend faster than you earn. The ads, the "you deserve it" messaging, the easy financing, none of that is random, it's intentional. And you've been playing inside that system your whole life without questioning it. There's an old warning about exactly this kind of thinking, that people aren't destroyed because they lack opportunity, they're destroyed because they misunderstand power. Money works the same way. Income is not power. Control is. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. You don't feel trapped because your salary is too small. You feel trapped because you don't have a strategy. Wealth doesn't begin when your paycheck grows, it begins the moment your behavior changes. I didn't learn this from a book, I learned it the hard way. There was a time I believed the next raise would fix everything, more income meant more freedom. But when the money increased, nothing changed. The stress stayed exactly the same, because my habits didn't change. It wasn't until I stopped blaming my income and started analyzing my behavior that things finally shifted. That's when this whole way of thinking started making sense to me, not as philosophy, but as survival. And if this idea makes you uncomfortable, that's actually a good sign, because real transformation always starts when illusions break. So let's get into it. Strategy 1: pay yourself like you owe yourself money. Think about it like this: if you owed your landlord money and decided to just wait until next month, what would happen? Pressure. Consequences. Urgency. But when it comes to your own future, you treat it like a suggestion, something optional, something flexible. That's backwards. Your future self is the most important creditor you'll ever have. Ignore it long enough, and it collects in ways far more painful than late fees. Now, this is where people push back. They say, I don't make enough to save. But that's not logic, that's an excuse, because the amount isn't the point, the habit is. Say you earn a modest amount a month, before anything else, before bills, food, or entertainment, you set a small amount aside. Maybe a little. Is that life-changing? No. But that's not what it's doing. What it's actually doing is rewiring your identity, training your brain to accept one powerful truth: wealth building is non-negotiable. It's not something you do when things are perfect, it's something you do because things aren't perfect. That's how real wealth starts, not with luck, not with big wins, but with small, consistent discipline that feels almost meaningless at first. There's a well-known story of someone who understood this early. As a teenager doing simple work, he saved aggressively, not because he was making huge money, but because he understood the power of habit. The idea that the best investment you can make is in yourself. What that leaves unsaid is that self-investment starts with self-respect, and paying yourself first is exactly that. It's a signal, a declaration, that your future matters more than your present comfort. Most people never make this shift. They keep saying, one day I'll start saving, one day I'll invest, one day I'll be disciplined. But there's no patience for one day people in this game. Power belongs to those who act, even with limited resources, especially with limited resources, because when you act under pressure, you build character, and character is what sustains wealth long term. Here's what's interesting: once you start paying yourself first, something subtle begins to happen. Your mindset shifts. You stop seeing money as something that just comes and goes, and start seeing it as something you control. And that shift, quiet as it is what separates the people who eventually win from the people who stay stuck forever. You're no longer waiting for life to improve, you're building a system that improves regardless of life. Now pause for a second. Don't think about how much you earn, think about how you treat yourself financially. Are you avoiding it? Are you inconsistent? Are you just starting? Put it into 1 or 2 words in your head, because that awareness is the first real step. And if you go deeper into this way of thinking, quiet strategies, long-term control, real leverage, you start realizing something else. The money you thought you didn't have was actually leaking, slowly, quietly, in ways you never questioned. And until you expose those leaks, no amount of discipline will ever be enough. That's exactly what we get into next. Strategy 2, track every dollar like it owes you rent. The moment you start paying yourself first, something shifts. You don't feel broke, but you do feel tighter, more aware. And for a lot of people, that's where panic kicks in. They think, this isn't working, why does money suddenly feel restricted? But this is actually the turning point, the moment pressure exposes reality and illusions start to collapse. Because what you're about to realize is this: it's not that you don't make enough money, it's that your money has been leaving without your permission. Let me ask you something honestly, have you ever opened your banking app and thought, where did all of it go? Not casually, not joking, actually confused, like the money just disappeared. It feels like theft, but it's not. Money doesn't vanish, it escapes, quietly, repeatedly, invisibly. And until you track it, you're fighting something you refuse to look at. The most dangerous threats are always the ones you don't see, and the same applies here. Until you track your spending, you're operating blind. Most people think they have a money problem. They don't. They have a clarity problem. Here's what that looks like in real life. It's a tired Thursday night, long day, you tell yourself, I'll cook tomorrow, so you open an app, order something simple, food, service fee, delivery, tip, and suddenly it's almost a full meal's worth of money gone for one dinner. Friday, same story. Sunday, maybe worse, now add a drink, maybe dessert. None of it feels like a decision, it feels automatic, like breathing. Then the end of the month hits, you check your statement and see a number way bigger than you expected, just on delivery. And you swear it couldn't have been that much. That gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend, that's exactly where your wealth is quietly disappearing. And it's not just food, it's small coffees, forgotten subscriptions, tiny purchases that somehow add up to a huge bill. None of it feels dangerous in the moment, that's the trick. Power is rarely taken from you in one big move, it's taken through hundreds of small ones. The wealthy have always understood this. Historically, the families that built the biggest banking empires tracked everything, every transaction, every movement, not because they were cheap, because they were precise. They knew exactly where their money was going, which meant they knew exactly where to redirect it. Awareness creates leverage. Without it, you're negotiating with yourself from a position of weakness. You don't need a fancy system for this, use whatever works, an app, a spreadsheet, even your notes app. The tool doesn't matter, the act does. Because when you start seeing your numbers clearly, something uncomfortable happens, you stop lying to yourself. You can't say, I don't spend that much, you can't say, it's just this once. The numbers don't care about your story, they show patterns, and patterns reveal identity. This is where real discipline starts, not from motivation, but from discomfort. Whether you're in your 20s spending on things you barely use, or in your 40s wondering where years of income went, the realization is the same: you're not actually broke, you've just been careless in ways you never questioned. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's power. Strategy 3, live like you're broke even when you're not. This is where ego gets involved, because we live in a world that rewards appearance over reality, flash over foundation. Looking rich matters more than being free to a lot of people. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear: rich people often look average, and average people try very hard to look rich. The middle class gets stuck in between, draining itself trying to maintain an image. There's a reason this matters: when you live below your means, you create margin, and margin creates options, and options create power. You don't show your strength, you build it quietly. Think about this: someone driving a 10-year-old car, no debt, consistently investing, has more actual power than someone driving a brand new luxury car on payments, living paycheck to paycheck. One is free, the other is trapped by image. You see this everywhere. Someone earning a decent income lives simply for a few years, invests consistently, builds a solid portfolio. Meanwhile, someone earning double upgrades everything: car, house, lifestyle, and ends up stressed, dependent, stuck. Same world, different outcomes, not because of income, because of discipline. This is what you could call stealth living. You intentionally make your life cheaper than it needs to be, not because you enjoy struggle, but because you value leverage. You delay gratification while everyone else rushes into it, and over time, the gap grows, not dramatically, quietly. That's how real wealth works. But discipline alone isn't enough. Once you stop the leaks and create margin, you have to ask a better question: how do I grow without burning myself out? Strategy 4, build quiet income. Forget everything hustle culture told you. You don't need to destroy yourself working 16 hours a day, you don't need 3 jobs and no sleep. That's not strategy, that's desperation. The goal isn't to suffer more, the goal is to build systems that earn without constant effort. Quiet income looks boring, and that's exactly why it works. Freelance work you do once a week. Digital products you create once and sell repeatedly. Selling templates. Writing scripts. Flipping undervalued items. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, but effective. I know someone who created a simple digital product years ago. They barely touch it now, but it still generates a few $100 extra every month. No hype, no constant work, just consistency. Over time, that becomes serious money. Here's what most people underestimate: a modest amount of extra income invested properly over years compounds into something real. But more importantly, it changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who depends only on a paycheck. You become someone with options, layers, backup systems. And that's what power actually feels like: not loud, not flashy, stable. Now pause again. Think about your life. Where is money leaking, and where could you create even a small extra stream? 1 or 2 words, that's enough. Because once you create margin and start building quiet income, a new danger shows up, more subtle than everything before: the urge to touch it, to reward yourself early, to break the system, just a little. And if you don't learn how to protect what you've built, you'll slowly destroy your own progress. Strategy 5, make your money untouchable. This is where everything either holds or falls apart. Because once you've built some margin, once a little extra money starts stacking up, a new enemy shows up: not bad luck, not the economy, you. People aren't usually destroyed by outside forces, they're destroyed by their inability to control themselves, and that becomes very real the moment money starts to grow. As your bank balance increases, so does temptation. You start thinking, I've been disciplined, I deserve something, and just like that, one decision turns into 2, then 5, then 10, until months of progress quietly disappear. Discipline is fragile, systems are not. Most people think they need more self-control. They don't. They need friction, distance, barriers between them and their impulses. Because if your money is easy to access, it's easy to destroy. All it takes is one late night, one emotional decision, one "I deserve this" moment, and everything starts slipping. So here's a simple but powerful move: open a second account, different bank, no debit card, no easy access, no app on your phone. Then automate a small transfer every time you get paid, whatever amount you can sustain, and then, forget about it. Out of sight becomes out of mind becomes untouched, and untouched becomes still there a year later. This isn't theory, this is how people on average incomes quietly build up real savings over time, not because they're smarter, because they remove temptation. We live in a world designed for instant gratification, one tap, and your money is gone. You can't rely on willpower alone, you have to build structure, design systems where winning becomes inevitable. You don't fight temptation, you outsmart it. Strategy 6: invest even if it's a small amount at a time. This is where most people hesitate for years. They say, "I'll start when I have more money," but that moment never comes. Because investing isn't about having money, it's about becoming the kind of person who invests. People who start early don't wait for comfort, they act while it feels small, even pointless. There's a well-known story of someone who bought his first stock as a kid, not because the amount mattered, but because ownership changed how he saw money. And that's the real shift: ownership. That's the line between people who stay stuck and people who build wealth. Poor thinking focuses on spending, wealthy thinking focuses on owning, because spending disappears instantly, ownership compounds quietly. If you're waiting to invest because the amount feels too small, you're missing the entire point. That small amount isn't about returns, it's training, repetition, identity, because one day it won't be small anymore, it'll be significant, and by then, you'll already know what to do. Time in the market beats timing the market, because time changes behavior, and behavior determines outcomes. Power grows through consistency, not bursts of effort, and this is exactly that. Here's the shift that changes everything: wealth is not income, wealth is ownership. The moment you own even a small piece of something that grows, you step into a different game. That's why wealthy people look calm, their money is working even when they're not. Broke people chase experiences, wealthy people build leverage. Strategy 7: use rich math. Poor math is emotional, rich math is intentional. Poor math asks, "Can I afford the monthly payment?" Rich math asks, "What will this cost me over time?" That one difference changes everything. Most people budget like this: rent, bills, food, lifestyle, and whatever's left, maybe savings. That's survival, that's living at the edge. Rich math flips it: needs first, then wealth building, then if anything remains, wants. This isn't restriction, it's prioritization. There's a popular rule: 50-30-20, 50% needs, 30% wants, 20% savings. That's a start, but real progress begins when you push further: 60% needs, 30% wealth building, 10% wants. That's how someone earning far less can outperform someone earning much more, because one is intentional, the other is reactive. Here's the truth most people avoid: people don't go broke because they earn too little, they go broke because they believe they deserve comfort now. Rich math says freedom later is worth more, and it always is. Strategy 8: kill middle-class debt traps. This one stings because it's so normalized: buy now, pay later, car payments, minimum credit card payments, endless subscriptions. None of it looks dangerous, that's exactly why it works. A hefty monthly car payment for a vehicle you barely use. A 0% financing TV that feels free but trains you to finance everything. These aren't purchases, they're patterns, they condition you to live beyond your means, comfortably. Here's something most people don't think about: financial systems don't profit when you're wealthy, they profit when you're in debt. Every low monthly payment is designed to keep you dependent, every credit increase is a longer leash. It feels like access, but it's control. Debt doesn't just cost money, it costs freedom, because once your lifestyle depends on payments, you can't walk away from your job, from pressure, from anything. If it doesn't pay you back, it's a liability, simple as that. You don't need to look rich, you need to be free. The person with no monthly payments, consistent investments, and a simple lifestyle is winning, even if nobody notices, actually especially because nobody notices. Now pause again, think about one expense, one debt that doesn't serve you, just one. That awareness alone starts the shift. Because once you reduce debt and start building ownership, something changes, you stop needing validation, you stop performing, you disappear, and that's where real power begins. Strategy 9. Build stealth wealth. Most people think wealth is loud, cars, clothes, vacations, status. But those are signals, not substance, and signals attract attention, attention creates pressure, pressure leads to bad decisions. Real wealth avoids all of that. The strongest position is always the one least noticed, not hidden out of fear, but protected through strategy. Stealth wealth means you're financially strong without announcing it, no pressure to impress, no lifestyle competition, no need to prove anything. You move quietly, and your money grows quietly. Picture a millionaire, now erase the image you just had, because in real life, they're often invisible, simple clothes, normal car, no noise, no show. You'd walk past them and never notice. That's not an accident, that's control. When nobody expects you to spend, you don't feel forced to, you're not performing anymore, you're positioning. Old money always understood this, they stayed wealthy not by showing it, but by protecting it, because visibility invites interference, and quiet protects momentum. This is the real flex, not worrying about a surprise emergency bill, owning your time, being able to say no, sleeping peacefully because your life isn't financed. That's wealth, not noise, not attention, silence, and silence is expensive. Strategy 10. Automate everything, then forget about it. Because motivation fades, discipline weakens, life gets busy. You can't trust human consistency, you have to trust systems. So build systems that don't rely on how you feel, automatic transfers, automatic investments, automatic bill payments, everything handled without asking you. Because you won't always feel disciplined, but automation doesn't care, it executes anyway. That's how wealth quietly compounds in the background while you live your life. And here's the paradox, the less you think about money, the more consistently it grows, because systems outperform willpower every time. You won't manually save every month forever, but an automated system will. Years pass, balances grow, and one day, you look back and realize something powerful, you didn't hustle your way out of scarcity, you designed your way out. That's the truth most people miss, you don't need a higher income to build wealth, you need better behavior, better systems, more control. Quiet wealth isn't built with hype, it's built with habits, patience, structure, and restraint. While everyone else is chasing fast results, you're building something that lasts, slowly, silently. If your income feels small, good, because that means strategy matters more. Discipline is powerful, but automation is unstoppable. Build the system once, let it run, let time do the heavy lifting, and let silence protect your progress. Now don't think about where you are, think about who you're becoming, not trying, not starting, becoming. One word, that's it. Because that word is the identity you step into from today, and once that identity is set, everything else follows, quietly. If this shifted the way you see yourself even a little, then don't stop here, because what you've heard today is only the surface. There are deeper layers to psychology, influence, and wealth that simply can't be covered fully in one sitting, not because they don't exist, but because most people aren't ready to hear them. That's why most stay average. If you're not one of them, stick around, because everything here is designed to sharpen your mindset, increase your value, and separate you from the crowd. No fluff, no noise, just strategy. Most people will hear this and move on. A few will stay and change. Decide which one you are.